There's a lot of parallels between horses and people in that regard, right? You're applying pressure to motivate some kind of result. I tell the students when I'm teaching the Clinician Academy every year, I said, never forget this. No matter what you're doing, you're trying to teach the horse something. But I think people forget about this. When you apply pressure to a horse emotionally, you're very ineffective because it's not result driven. It's, you're making me angry. You're getting me frustrated. You keep making the same mistake and I've got to go do something about it. Rather than saying, hey, right, what do you need from me? Do I need to make you feel more comfortable? Do I need to make you feel more uncomfortable? Do I need you to be more tired? Do I need you to have more energy? One way or another, whatever I'm doing is to get a desired result.
In de aflevering van vandaag zijn er een aantal dingen die we voor het eerst doen. Namelijk, het is een aflevering in het Engels. En daarnaast, het is de allereerste keer dat ik drink tijdens mijn werk. Ik zit namelijk samen met een cowboy uit Amerika genaamd Jeff Davis. En nou hoor ik je denken, wat heeft een cowboy te maken met leiderschap? We gaan het hebben over werkethiek. We gaan het hebben over meesterschap. En wat is er nou werkelijk nodig om ergens de top in te bereiken? En tot slot spreken we over, wat is nou een van de meest effectieve manieren van leren? En wat zijn nou de mensen waar je het makkelijkste mee kunt werken? Dus ik zou zeggen, zet je neer en geniet van de aflevering van deze week. So, I think there's a first for everything. One of the first things today is, it's the first podcast after releasing like a lot of them that is in English. So that's new.
Okay.
And we never drink and work. This is also the first time. So
okay.
I would say, it's the first time for everything.
Exactly. So I'm either lowering your standards or this is a new trend.
This is going to be great, and I will become a alcoholic, something like that.
Yeah.
So if somebody would speak to you and they ask you, so what do you do? Is it like, I'm a cowboy, I'm a clinician? What do you tell people?
The actual term would be clinician for sure. Most of the time I start with horse trainer, and then we get into what I actually do. When you say clinician, the first thing out of people's mouth is, what the heck is that?
What's that?
What does that even mean? Like, are you a doctor or something? Like, you don't look like a doctor. That's the first thing that comes out of their mouth.
It's a medical term.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So when I say, well, I'm a horse trainer. Oh, what kind of horses do you train? Then I go into, I'm involved with down under horsemanship, and I'm one of their clinicians. I travel, I teach, and so on. And that's usually how that conversation gets started. Anymore, what usually happens is, oh, you're a horse trainer. You mean like Yellowstone? Just like Yellowstone?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Well, Yellowstone, it's really big. Also in Holland, Belgium. So they can maybe have sort of like a look into how does your life looks like for just a little bit.
Yeah.
We will go into different topics that are related to leadership because it's a leadership podcast. Sure. And your job has a lot to do with leadership.
Very much so.
Now, we're lucky that you're here because you just finished up. You have been grinding here for like the last 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. Now, when you were here, the Tour de France was going on.
Yeah.
It's not big in America, maybe through Lance Armstrong.
Yeah.
But that's 3 weeks, 2 rest days.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you did 4 weeks, 1 rest day.
Yes.
Now, I can understand America has a lot more to do with horses. Is there a difference, by the way, between teaching in America versus teaching in Holland?
Yes, I think there is. Probably the main thing is people are not nearly as familiar with the style of horsemanship that we do. There's a competitive horse industry over here in the English industry, but in terms of, let's just call it horsemanship, or some people, we don't really use this term, but natural horsemanship, that's still a little bit of a foreign concept.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a difference in trying to instruct that. I see a lot of confused faces when I'm giving certain speeches and teaching certain techniques. There's like, I didn't learn that anywhere in my 40 years of horses. I never learned that. There's a lot of that.
So just to start off with, so you just finished, and I was there last year. Mm-hmm. Mandy, my wife, participated in your course. This year it was Lotus, my 12-year-old daughter, who participated. Now, one of the things that I saw was a grown woman who was part of our team on a very tiny horse. Do you have any stories about, what you encounter in Holland that you maybe don't encounter in America?
So that one, that lady in particular, that very well may be the smallest horse that I've ever seen anybody actually ride in a clinic. And I've seen a lot of horses in a lot of clinics. So that was definitely different. The main thing that I would probably say that I see that is different, my mentor, Clinton, has an expression that we call them tree huggers, right? It's just the softer approach, right? It's don't make the horse uncomfortable. We're getting too sweaty. We need to, just go slow. And what might take you a week, they're going to draw it out over the next 8 months, that kind of approach. I see more of that. And I think maybe that's more prevalent in the English disciplines, just that more trend of that style a little bit.
Yeah.
And, that's just very much not our style. We're a little bit more direct to the point. We always say that in a perfect world, time, wouldn't matter, but then the real world, time does matter.
It really does matter.
And yes, we need to get some kind of results. We need to get those relatively quickly if people are going to continue. Yeah, that's realistic.
Now, I think everybody here who is participating at your course, Juliet is our source point for you guys. She is referring a lot of people to you.
Yeah.
She is one of our great team members, CEO of our company. And she said, you will like down under horsemanship because it's just the straight line method within horsemanship.
Yeah.
So when I came there last year, just to look into it for just a little bit, you guys were sitting together just before the first training started. And maybe I was a little bit judgmental.
Yeah.
Looking at the people that were sitting there, I saw you sitting there.
I would have been.
Yeah, and I basically looked at you how I could look at myself. Sometimes sitting at a training, looking at people and like, I don't know if everybody is just as committed as is required to make this a big success.
Yes.
Then you started the training, and I immediately liked what you said. So I don't know if it was the first thing you said, but judge the method when we're done during the training.
Yes.
Don't start judging it immediately. Why I like that is, let's be really honest, and it's politically incorrect to say this, but people are not qualified to basically judge your training.
Yes.
And they can do it afterwards. Anything to say about that?
I very much agree with that. I very much have this principle myself that, if I'm going to go to a weekend event of any kind, if I walk away on Monday and said, well, that was a big waste of time, I got one thing out of that, and I think the rest of it is there's 2 days of my life I'll never get back. Like, I'm that disgusted with it. Make that decision on Monday. On the drive home, on the flight home, I'll make the decision. I'll also make the decision on whether I'm going to do what I would call ish. Am I going to do Johan-ish, what he says, or am I on board? You know? And I think you're absolutely right. You need some experience in something before you can really make an educated opinion. There's a lot of things that I could sit here and spout off about that I just don't know anything about. Hey, I could make it sound convincing. I could say it with confidence. That doesn't mean I know anything about it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to sit here and armchair quarterback somebody. Oh, well, this is what I would have done, and this is how the method should work. When in reality, how many horses have you trained? Oh, so this is your first horse. Well, what do you do for a living? Oh, you're an accountant. Well, I'm not mad at you, but the reality is you're just not a horse trainer.
Yeah.
So I say the first piece of equipment that you need to show up to one of our trainings with is an open mind.
Yeah.
That's the first thing you need. If you walk up to me Sunday afternoon and said, Jeff, I'm going to shake your hand, complete waste of my time, complete waste of my money. Hey, and I have all the respect for you in the world. But give me a chance. Give me a chance to help your horse, see if we can make a difference. Hey, if we didn't make a connection and that doesn't work for you, all power to you. There's a lot of people who do what I do. And you're going to relate to somebody.
Yeah.
It may not be me, but you'll relate to somebody.
Absolutely. And what I like what you said is, okay, normally when people judge things, it's sort of like, do I like this, yes or no?
Yes.
But it doesn't have anything to do with does it works, yes or
Correct.
no?
Very much. I completely agree with that. We say that for us, we're very results-driven people. I was talking to a student not long ago and she was asking me about my mentor, Clinton, and, I don't know if he likes me and this and that and the other. And I said, listen, likes got nothing to do with it. I said, we want results. If you can produce those results, we can get past a lot of things that we may not like if you can produce results. I said, if you can't, we're gonna make some attempts to get this working. And then after that, if it doesn't work, hey, you're gonna move on somewhere else. It's just that simple. So if you're a results-driven person, you want to see the horse make progress, you want to make progress, we're going to suit you like a hand in a glove.
Yeah.
But if you're one of those people, if you only want me to make you feel good, we're probably not gonna get along well.
Yeah.
I'm funny and entertaining enough, right? But at some stage,
Definitely,
people are like, hey, yeah, I chuckled a little bit, but I didn't make any progress, so I'm out of here. Results at the end of the day, I think, is really what keeps people coming back.
Cap, waanzinnig nieuws. Je luistert inmiddels al een tijd naar onze podcast. En de straight line leadership methodologie is jou al lang niet meer vreemd. Maar toch weet je dit nog niet allemaal concreet om te zetten in actie binnen je onderneming. Want dit allemaal weten is één ding, maar het daadwerkelijk effectief uitgevoerd krijgen is een totaal andere wereld. En daarom gaan we je iets aanbieden wat we in de geschiedenis van onze organisatie nog nooit eerder hebben gedaan. We openen namelijk onze studiodeuren voor jou als podcastluisteraar en ondernemer. En we lanceren een gloednieuwe serie genaamd The Hot Seat. En de Hot Seat is een exclusieve coaching sessie van 60 minuten... waarin jij en ik hier samen in de studio inzichtelijk maken wat jou op dit moment in een cirkel houdt. Voor degenen die mij nog niet kennen, mijn naam is Johan van der Put. En de afgelopen 10 jaar heb ik het voorrecht gehad om gedreven ondernemers te begeleiden bij het behalen van de doelen die voor hen belangrijk zijn. En nu heb jij diezelfde mogelijkheid door hier bij mij in de hot seat te komen zitten. Ben jij een ondernemer die werkelijk een bedrijf leidt en is er een kloof tussen waar jij je nu bevindt en waar je wil dat je organisatie zou staan? Maar ben je ook bereid om eerlijk te kijken naar jezelf en je eigen leiderschap? Dan is dit de mogelijkheid waar je gebruik van wil maken. Klik op de link hieronder in de beschrijving van de video en meld je nu aan. En ik kijk er naar uit om jou hier bij mij in de studio te verwelkomen.
Results at the end of the day, I think, is really what keeps people coming back.
That was one thing I noticed, and Juliet told me that. So she was doing the last week of the course, the advanced course.
Yes.
And she said, well, everybody who was there 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So people really commit. I like that ish, what you said.
Yeah.
So one of the things also regarding leadership is results driven. So as a leader, you're not paid to do a lot of work. You're not paid to grind 40 hours or 60 hours. You're paid to get results.
That's right.
And that's what you guys do, which I really like. And you either really commit to things. When you start half-assing things, there's this expression, well, half-ass is just as bad no matter which cheek you use.
Absolutely.
So, and I can see that you're basically demanding commitment.
Yes.
Open mind.
Yeah.
Which is great. So, okay, good. Then I learned you're 33 right now.
32.
Oh, 32
Yeah.
even. Okay, good. But you got into contact with the method from Clinton when you were like 13 or 14 years old.
Yeah.
How did that work out?
With where I grew up, we had horses and that, and we just rode them. You know what I mean? We started like a lot of people. In America, it's not as traditional for people to start like they do here in a riding barn, in a stable, taking lessons. So I'd never had a formal lesson of any sort. We just jumped on the horses and rode them like feral children, and anyhow, long story short, I got a horse that was, this is going to be my personal horse. It's not my dad's horse, not my mom's horse. And I'm clueless on how to train this horse, completely clueless. Almost to the point, I didn't realize horses needed to be trained to do some of these things. I'd only ever ridden horses that kind of knew how to do it. So I got out there and my dad did not want me to mess with it because he said, you don't know what you're doing. He was spot on about that. So what do, right? When your dad goes to work, you do it anyway. You're going to get out there and, you just don't tell him about it. And I had a couple of accidents where I got bucked off the horse really hard, just complete lack of preparation, like an insane lack of preparation. And what really happened is my mom wasn't going to stop me, but I think she knew he's gonna get himself killed. Like if I don't say something. So she knew a guy, a neighbor, who was familiar with Clinton's method and some other horse training methods. And she really ratted me out is what she did. She went around me and said, he's going to get himself killed. Can you help? And the guy said, yeah, come on over. Tell him to bring his horse over. So I went down there. He showed me a few techniques of things that are very similar to what we do now. And he gave me a VHS tape that he had copied from one of Clinton's horse training TV shows at the time. We were on a channel called RFD. It's a rural farm channel that Clinton was on. And when I saw that, I didn't know people like Clinton existed. I didn't know the horse training industry was an industry. I thought people just had horses and they did what they did and that was the end of it. So I said, hey, this is really cool. He gave me some other tapes too, other trainers and that. And I got a little something from everybody, but I always just kind of related to Clinton. Even then, I like the straightforward, Clinton's kind of a no-nonsense sort of a guy, you know? So but most importantly, it did get me results. I'm being honest, John, I was probably that close to quitting at one time, just saying, I just don't think I can do this horse training thing. Like this thing probably is going to seriously hurt me. And even then, as a young kid there, I really wanted to be a baseball player. I still had this delusion in my mind. I was a runt of a child, 5 feet tall, barely 100 pounds, soaking wet with a rock in my pocket. And so I always say lack of talent and athletic ability took care of that problem for me. But I was still delusional. And that kind of started my my interest in horsemanship and horse training.
Yeah. And then when comes the moment that you start probably doing something with Clinton down under horsemanship, and you say, this is where I devote my life to, because that's the moment probably. Yeah.
So I made a decision pretty quickly after discovering Clinton's method. I made the decision. I found it online. We still lived in an area that had dial-up internet out there, so it took a little while to find the method online and Google around. I don't even think it was probably not even Google at the time, but anyway, I find the method and I see that Clinton has a 4-year apprenticeship. And I said, hey, I think I can do this.
How old were you when you?
Probably 14 at this point.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe not even. So it was a quick turnaround for me. I think I was seeing the writing on the wall that, hey, you're not an athlete. Okay. I remember competing in what we would call varsity, like the high school level or even early high school, against guys that look like me. I'm like, that guy looks like he's on his second divorce, for Christ's sakes. He's got 2 kids in the car, you know what I mean? And he's got a full facial hair on him. So I was like, okay, you're not an athlete. So it really, I don't know, it really did. It tripped my trigger training horses and getting to see results with my horse. So I made the decision pretty quickly. And I remember having this conversation, I remember it vividly, having this conversation with my mother and saying, so this guy, Clinton, she's like, which one of the videos is he? And I was like, the copied one from the VHS. Oh yeah, that guy, the skinny Aussie guy. I said, yeah, that guy. I said, he's got a 4-year apprenticeship program and I'm going to go do that. And she's like, well, you're 14. You got time to think about it. And I said, no, you don't understand. I thought about it. I'm doing it.
I already did that.
It's already done in my mind. You know what I mean? This is going to happen. Now it's just operation. What do I have to do to become that guy?
Okay.
So I made the commitment and I have a little bit of an obsessive personality anyway. So like once I got off the athlete train, I got on the tunnel vision. I'm going to go be a down under horsemanship professional clinician train. And then it was just wide open, get experience. What do I have to do to be that guy? Obviously you couldn't even start until you were 18. So I have to finish high school and then go from there.
You did that, finished high school.
Yep.
And then how old were you when you started working with Clinton? 18?
So I was 19. The way the class started up, they started up June 1st of every year. So when I finished up high school, I had a bunch of jobs as a young kid. So I trained horses, I baled hay, I operated equipment, I built fence, I cleared property, I did all kind of things for people. So I finished up some contracts that I was obligated to do. and then went out and started that process. So June 1st of that year, I went, well, I guess in May, I went, it was still a tryout. You had to come to like it was a 10-day clinic, like very similar to what I do now, with the focus of, okay, we're interviewing potential clinician prospects. And shoot, I think that year maybe 50 applied and tried out. And I think maybe 9 of us got a slot to come try. And then June 1st, I mean, shoot, June 1st, 9 of us started, and June 3rd, somebody had already gotten fired from the program. I mean, it was quick.
That fast.
Oh, it's very fast.
Okay, so you're one of those guys who got to the trial. Mm-hmm. And now basically we're going into mastery. Because I think if you're a leader of a company, whatever job you do, you need information, you need skill sets to make you great at whatever you do. But you need to be really locked in and committed and pay the price.
Yes.
So it seems like I was sitting in my car and a bunch of these kids came up, or 18-year-old kids, like, great car. Yeah. What do you do? And one of the first questions they ask is, okay, help me. How can I make money? Yeah. And I know a lot of people online will have a clear answer to that. I don't have a clear answer, because if you don't have like a business already, you don't have real skills, how are you going to make money?
Yes.
So when we dive into mastery, because I think people will be surprised what it actually takes to sit here, be a clinician, do what you do. Mm-hmm. So how did that go? What is required in those 4 years to really get out as a real down under horsemanship clinician?
You know, I would have clinician potential people that would want to try out for the academy, and that even when I was an apprentice, ask me, I want to do what you do. I see what you're doing, and I'm going to be I'm going to be you. I'm going to be better than you. And I would say, hey, that's a great goal to have, And I used to say hard work is what held people back. And I still agree with that. I still think a lot of people just plain and simply good old fashioned work ethic. They just don't want to pour the sweat into it. But I since have realized it's more than that. The next big one is they don't want to give up anything. Mm. They don't want to sacrifice anything. There's a quick story that Clinton, my mentor, told me when we got there. I don't even know if the story is true, but I'd like to think it is. There was a really famous cutting horse trainer in the horse industry. Since passed away. His name was Buster Welch. And the story goes, there's a young man, he's sitting on the fence and he's watching Buster work a cow on one of his cutting horses. And Buster was a legend in the industry. And the kid's watching him and he's just blown away. Like, my God, that's the master right there. I'm looking at him. And when the guy gets off his horse and Buster walks out and the young kid says, hey, Mr. Welch, I would do anything to be able to be a cutting horse trainer like you. I would do anything. What would I have to give to be you? And Buster said, you don't have to give up. You don't have to give anything. You just have to give up everything. You're going to have to give up weekends and holidays for a season, obviously. You're going to have to give up all that extra stuff that you do, that you enjoy. Because if you're going to be that laser focused and really dedicate yourself, if we're talking mastery, you can be average at almost anything part-time, right? Yeah. But if you say something inside me just cannot be satisfied with doing it like everybody else does it, you're going to have to really get serious and say, hey, for a time in my life, I'm putting all that aside. It's going to be, to do what I was doing. I don't know how that works with a wife and kids at home. I don't know how that works when you want to be at your sister's wedding and you're, it's the 4th of July and your family always has a celebration out on the lake and that. And hey, you're in the grind phase of your career. So at least for that early phase, when you're developing your skill set, hell, you got all the passion and enthusiasm, but you don't have any skills.
Yeah.
You've got no experience. You need the work ethic, and you need to say, I'm going to devote myself wholeheartedly to this. This is going to consume my life for a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people really romanticize that whole cowboy life. They look at Yellowstone. They're like,
my
this
God.
is great.
Yeah.
So what did it take you? Because it has been said that to commit really means to cut off.
Yeah.
What did you at the cut off, or how does a typical day look like?
Yeah. So is as an apprentice, or you mean as like a typical day now?
I would say both.
Okay. Yeah.
Like to the road to getting to this level.
Yeah. I would say early on, very much what you just said. You really do have to cut off a lot. You know, when you're going to work 80 to 100 hours a week consistently, you don't have the time or the energy. You know, what I do is it's a physical business. Horse training is very physically intense. We used to say you need to be, this is probably why I succeeded there. We said, you need to be young in the body and old in the mind. You need to be mature enough to, let's be blunt, to take an ass chewing and grow thick skin and learn to be a man about it and learn to come back from your mistakes and say, yeah, I screwed that one up and we're going to go again.
Yeah.
You know, and that's hard to do. It's hot. You're sweaty. Your mentor, the guy you respect more than anything, is yelling at you and telling you you're not doing it right and crawling up your ass about something and telling you, hey, you need to get this together here. And nobody wants to hear that. So you got to be mature enough to deal with it. And you've also got to be just patient enough to say, hey, I'm not going to be the master for a while. I'm in the grind. I'm getting this figured out. Every one of these horses, every one of these things, this is just experience. That's what this is. So you just keep adding that to your tool belt until eventually you got a pretty serious arsenal on your side that you can do a lot of things with.
How long does that take?
So it took me 4 years. At the time, we used to say the apprenticeship it was a 4-year minimum process.
Yeah.
You know, the first phase was a year and a half. And typically in those days, what would happen in Clinton's program is you would come in for a year and a half, you would kind of graduate at the first level, the entry level, and then from there, you would go out on your own for a year. And I think that was really just a phase to see, do you really want to do this? Do you want to keep going? Or maybe you're only really cut out for the first phase. Maybe you're not quite cut out for the professional level, as we'd call it now. And so I say jokingly, it was supposed to be a year and a half. It just took me 4 years because I'm a slow learner. And there's probably some truth to that too. But when I got to a year and a half, me and the other two boys that were in the class with me, Clinton said, hey, you know, you guys got the skills. I can tell that you're committed and you want to be here. So if you want to stay, I'm happy to keep you on, and you guys can stay for another 2 years plus or whatever.
And staying means at his ranch, training horses.
Exactly. So stay in that apprenticeship program and continue to do that 7 days a week.
Yeah. It's 7 days a week.
It's supposed to be 6, right? But listen, the reality of the horse industry in general is horses don't work on our schedule. You know, horses don't get sick on your schedule. They don't need to go to the vet. They don't decide to get stuck in the fence. They don't decide to have an issue on your schedule. So, it was always meant to be 6 days a week. You know, you take Sundays off as a general rule. And that happened a lot. I'm not going to sit here and exaggerate. You know, we got plenty of 6-day weeks, but there were a lot of weeks where, it's 7 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's still very much like this now. And anybody in the horse industry would say, oh yeah, that's, we've all got plans and we've all got what we'd like to have happen. And then there's just reality.
Yeah. And then we had the privilege to have you over at the beginning of this year. And I noticed, I was calling from my office. I saw you walking by. You were dealing with the horses from like 8 in the morning to like 8 in the evening.
Yeah.
And then I saw the people who brought in their horses going to lunch and all that stuff. Not you. It was just constantly going. Is that like, because you just finished a 4-week training here in the Netherlands, is that like a typical day?
I would say in a lot of places, yes, especially private events. If it's a public clinic and I've got more set hours and I'm not, everybody's going to bring one horse, right? So at that point, hey, a horse can only absorb so much information in the day. Even if you'd like to work him all day, it's just like a person. You're going to learn what you're going to learn for that day, and that's going to be the end of it. So at a typical public clinic, I would say no. I'd say you'd have some hours in the morning. You'd take an hour and a half to 2 hour break. We're never totally off. I'm trying to run my own business here, so I've got things to do over lunch. But in terms of horse training, no. If I'm doing a private event like what I did for you and Mandy, you guys have multiple horses. So my thought is, hey, you hired me for the day, so you're going to get me for the day. So if you want me to go around the clock, like if you would have put the paper in front of me and said, hey, I think what I've got lined out for you is about 23 hours of work to do. All right, cool. Where do you want to start? We'll start that.
Yeah.
Hey, you got me, so that's what you're going to get. That's
Good.
what you paid for.
I like that.
Yeah.
So, and then you said, well, basically every horse made me a better horseman. So do you have an example of that?
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a few. Yeah. So we say that every horse will teach you something, and no different than every interaction with a person will teach you something. You learn something, you pick up something, throughout my career. Oh my God, I've had so many horses that have taught me some very valuable lessons. I can think of, I tell people all the time, I could teach a monkey to use the tools. I could teach a chimpanzee to use any of the horse training tools of anybody's industry in the horse and business. But to read the horse and learn to what do I need to do in the moment, read what he's doing and make a sound judgment, that's the hard part. So one that just sticks out to me is when I was an apprentice, one of the things that stuck out to me about Clinton's method is it's structured. It's a method, right? It's step by step. So I was analytical about it. So my thought was, hey, you do it exactly the way that video says, and there's no exceptions to the rule, and I don't want to hear any excuses, right? That got me in a lot of trouble. So fast forward, I've got a mare in training. It's a Morgan, so that's a breed of horse in America. And long story short, she's really hot, so naturally very fast and energetic. And another student had her in training before. I think they get fired or got quit. This is pretty early on in our apprenticeship, maybe first 4 months. So she gets added to my list, right? So I take over the little Morgan, and she's hot. This thing is running off and being silly. So, we train horses typically for people who are very inexperienced. So that racing around, that didn't bother me a bit. I could ride, so it didn't bother me, but that's not who I'm training it for. I'm not going to buy her. So in my mind, I've always got, hey, 90-year-old lady, she's going to put her walker over here, and she's going to put the mounting block over there, and she's going to get on her. So my grandmother's got to ride this horse, and I love my grandmother, but she can't ride for shit. So I'm thinking that in my mind. So I know this is not going well. And I'm outside in a training area that we had on Clinton's ranch. And Clinton comes out there, and he sees this mare just tearing around. And every time what would happen is every now and then she would be cantering around, and then she would break down to the trot. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I said to canter. That's what I wanted. Now, I wanted her to canter slow, but in my mind, there was no in between. You either canter slow or you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
That was my attitude. So every time she would break down, we would, our technique is we would say you squeeze with your legs, you cluck with your voice, and then you would spank with the tail end of your rein or something like that to drive the horse forward. So, as soon as she would break down, I'd squeeze and cluck. She wouldn't hardly let you spank her. She's too silly for that anyway. And I see Clinton for like a half a second in just pure disgust. Most of my apprenticeship, I felt like Clinton looked at me with a disgust on his face. And Lord, I don't blame him, right? So he's like, just come here. He said, why do you keep making that mare go so fast? I said, I'm not. I want her to slow down. He's like, well, you sure as hell don't look like you want her to slow down. And I'm like, well, I don't get it. I'm not whipping her, so I don't know what you're getting at. He said, number one, you're riding her way too aggressively. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I'm not getting after her, quote unquote, so I don't know what you're talking about. He said, no, it's just you in the saddle. You just look intense, like you're being very intense. And he said, not only that, every time she even tries to slow down, you're making her speed up again. And I thought, well, he must not have saw that she was trotting. She was the one that was doing it wrong. So I said, well, she was trotting. He's like, I don't give a damn if she's trotting. She's slowing down. So he said, here's what I want you to do. He said, I want you, every time she slows down like that, I want you to let her trot for like 500 feet. And I'm like, he must misunderstand. I said, I'm trying to get her to canter. Did you see that? He's like, yeah, I know. I see that. I completely get that. But let her trot anyway. And then I'm like, okay, that's weird. And he said, and then I want you to rub on her when she does it. I'm like, this is really weird. Like now I'm rewarding her.
Completely counterintuitive.
Completely. To an idiot like me, it's counterintuitive. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do what the boss says. You're the master. I'm the apprentice. So sure enough, I do it. Then he says, right, after 500 feet, you're just going to gently squeeze and you're going to ask her to canter off like she's got an entire runway to canter. You don't care how long it takes. And I said, so then if she doesn't go, you want me to cluck and spank? And he's like, don't you even dare think about pressuring her anymore. You just squeeze her like you don't even want her to go. And again, I'm trying to train her. I think my intensity is what's going to get her trained. So sure enough, I do that. And he said, do that for 3 days and then come find me. So I'm out there and for the first day, I'm not going to lie. I'm thinking, this is stupid. I'm letting her get away with murder here.
Yeah.
You know, she's doing it wrong. And here I am. I'm just letting her get away with it. What kind of horseman am I? You know what I mean? Clinton must have just told me this just to put me off, basically. Well, I'll be damned if she doesn't start calming down. And I notice when she canters off now, she's pretty relaxed. Like, okay, might be something to that. So then he said, right, just cut the distance in half. Do it, let her trot for 250 feet, gently squeeze and go on. He said, and every day, back that up another 50 feet until eventually when she breaks to the trot, you're just going to gently squeeze her and say, nah, that's not what I want. And what I didn't realize, and after the fact, I learned the lesson and then he really clarified for me. He said, listen, she's not trying to be bad when she breaks down to the trot. She's not slowing down because she doesn't think you're going to let her slow down. That taught me a lot about, in my mind, I thought, well, if I'm not physically getting after her, that would be the only thing making her nervous of me. It was just purely my intensity around her. A horse is an animal, right? You know, they can feel that. And it aggravated me every time she'd make a mistake. In my mind, that's a mistake, not hey, you're just learning. She doesn't know how to canter slow. In her defense, she didn't know that cantering slow was even an option.
Yeah.
You know, and I was completely blowing past that. And instead of saying, hey, nice try, that's a good try, it's not quite what I want, let's try something else. Casually make a correction and let her go on. Don't kill her for it. Don't make her feel bad about it. Just say, hey, not quite what I'm after. Let's try this again.
Yeah, good. Yeah. And this has a lot to do with leadership. Now, I may be completely wrong, so I'm checking in. With a horse, you can tell a horse whatever you want to, but don't they just pick up who you're being?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the same with leadership and teams. You can say whatever. People pick up who you're being.
Yes.
And the effect of a leader, same as with horses, is pretty much immediate.
Yeah.
Now, a part of training horses is applying pressure and then release.
Mm-hmm.
I think the same goes for leadership. Looking at your mentor, couple of things I want to dive into here because I think there's a lot to go over. So one of the things is when you look at applying pressure and releasing pressure. Now, looking at people, and we're going to dive into the relationship to you have the horses and the people, but if you want to have people or a horse perform, you sometimes need to apply pressure. But you can't keep applying pressure. You need to release.
Yes.
Can you say anything about that, how that works with horses?
Yeah. You know, I think that's very much the way you train a horse. We say that horses don't learn from pressure. They learn from the release of pressure. All pressure does when you're talking about horses is it motivates them to look for an answer. That's really all it does. It's when you quit doing what you're doing that they actually learn something, right? So,
but that is actually really good. Because applying pressure, if there's not enough pressure, people normally, exceptions there, are going through the motions. What you learn about people when you start releasing pressure, that's basically where you see what sticks, who they are, and what corrections need to be made in a team. Yeah,
no, I could not agree more. And then there's a lot of parallels between horses and people in that regard, right? You know, you you're applying pressure to motivate some kind of result, right? So whatever that is, do I need to make you, I tell the students when I'm teaching the Clinician Academy every year, I said, never forget this. No matter what you're doing, you're trying to teach the horse something. That's all you're ever doing. And I said, I know that seems like maybe, duh, of course that's what we're doing. But I think people forget about this. When you apply pressure to a horse emotionally, you're very ineffective because it's not result driven. It's, you're making me angry. You're getting me frustrated. You keep making the same mistake and I've got to go do something about it. Rather than saying, hey, right, what do you need from me? Do I need to make you feel more comfortable? Do I need to make you feel more uncomfortable? Do I need you to be more tired? Do I need you to have more energy? One way or another, whatever I'm doing is to get a desired result. When I get that result, then I can back off.
And it sounds really obvious, but you're adjusting to the horse,
yes,
not the other way around. And I think, and this is one of the things, and I can see that doing my daughter Lotus, and I see that doing leaders all over the place. When they start to be frustrated about certain results or they see certain things not happening, they get frustrated and basically their frustrations get projected onto the horse or to other people, to teams.
Absolutely.
How is that for you? Because you need to be holding frame with horses. You maybe can trick people into believing that you're calm while you're not, but horses, not an option.
No, yeah.
How did you train yourself in holding frame?
I would say the main thing really, it really is experience. We say that your frustration begins where your knowledge ends. And knowledge shows you what to do, and experience shows you when, where, how to do it, And I remember I used to watch Clinton and think, that guy's so patient. Right. And then I worked for Clinton and I'm like, that guy's not patient at all. Right. You know what I mean? And I very much, I reflect that sentiment. But when people say that, well, you seem like a very patient guy. It's like, no, I'm extremely impatient in so many other areas. Knowledge and experience with horses, getting in there and doing it enough times and getting the results you want really teaches you, right, you're not doing what I want now, but it's only a matter of time. I will make whatever adjustments I need to make. It's only a matter of time. I don't know how long, but I'll get you to get in the trailer.
You look at it big picture, widescreen.
Big picture. Absolutely. That's one of the things that when I saw that, that's a real trait that I admired in Clinton when I started working there. Is I said, I want to have that kind of confidence that guy has. Like, he never once thought about horses at all when we would go to an event. Me and my buddies that are in the apprenticeship, we're all thinking about, I wonder if there's going to be a horse that does this or that or this or whatever. Yeah. And, you say, what do you think, Clinton? And Clinton's like, what? I'm looking at boats over here. I'm doing something else, totally different. And we would think, how does he not think about that? He's got the confidence through experience that, no, we're going to find a way. One way or another, we're going to find a way, like you said, by looking at the big picture. We're not going to get caught up in all the little symptoms that the horse give us. Hey, big picture. So experience is really the main one. And you've got to get out there and, hey, you're going to screw it up a lot. Horses, there's nothing natural about working with a horse at all. Horses and people don't even remotely think the same.
No.
So you've got to be prepared. Hey, I'm going to screw this up a lot. I'm going to frustrate a lot of horses. I'm going to confuse the hell out of a lot of horses until I learn we'll learn what we would call feel and timing. Yeah. Right? Feel is how much timing.
Is that something you got born with, or it's just you learn that over time through experience?
So I think some people have a lot of natural feel and timing. And I'm jealous as hell of those people, right? Because you give them something, we've all seen the guy, he picks up the baseball bat and he hits a home run with it. And you're like, how the hell does that happen?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's just got the feel. And if you ask him, how do you do that? I don't know. I just feel it.
Just do it.
And you're like, feel it? Hell, what are you talking about? Some people are just gifted in school. Things make sense to them. And the rest of us have to study like maniacs just to pass the test. So I definitely think some people are born with a lot of natural feel, especially, maybe not timing, but feel especially. And I think feel sort of leads to timing. In my case, it was a lot more repetitions. I felt very awkward for a long time. I felt like, I'm like a fish out of water here. You know what I mean? Me and the horse don't get along whatsoever. And I had to work extremely hard just to develop that feel and timing with practice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like what you say, because if we make a link to leadership, a lot is theoretical leadership, knowing about leadership, which doesn't make you a leader. You need experience for that.
Sure.
And the same goes for your trait.
Absolutely.
And then one more thing, and we can flow into the next part, but to end off mastery. And I like your relationship with Clinton. And I never met him. I should.
Yeah.
We're probably going to meet in the future, or going to meet. It has been said that mastery is about the removal of everything that is mediocre in your life. And when you start to surround yourself with excellence, with mastery, that would be some materials you use with training horses.
Sure.
It would be other people who are masters at their trade. One of those things, and I think this is a blessing, the same goes for my mentor, probably for your mentor, they have very high expectations. They don't like mediocrity. And they expect a hell of a lot more from you than you maybe arbitrarily you look at certain, I don't know, boundaries for yourself, or like, what's possible for yourself. How was that? How was that experience with, because a lot of people call themselves mentors, and I would stay away from most of them. And then every now and then you have a true master, and it seems Clinton absolutely is one of those people. Yeah,
it's true. I think it's very true what you say. In that space, I think there's a lot of, it's theoretical. It's I joke sometimes, and I see I got this term from another guy in a completely different industry, but he says it's what I call a theorist. You're not a practitioner, you're a theorist, right? You're gonna talk to me about business leadership, and you never started a business. You know what I mean? So you're gonna talk to me about horse training, but you've never really trained a horse to any respectable level. So it's very true. One of the things I think that I respected the most about Clinton is that he could really get the job done. Like, he's not a theorist. He's not I hate that it's true, unfortunately, but I hate that expression, those that can't do teach, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of, even in our world, and especially in those days, I think when Clinton was first starting, there was a lot of those, you're a clinician. That's what you do. You instruct people, but you're not really a horse trainer, maybe. And Clinton started as a horse trainer. So that's why so much of our stuff is results driven, timelines. We've got to get things done because people have expectations. When you're paying your money for a horse to stay in training, you want to see progress, and you don't have forever to get the progress. So then when you move that over into the clinician world, you come over with those kind of expectations. I think anybody would be lying if they said a good coach is going to push you past what you think your limitations are.
Yeah.
That's what they're there for, and Clinton definitely did. He pushed me in a lot of ways that I'm like, you're going to have to dig deeper. I said, there's nothing like showing up your best self on time, all in, never been more committed. I put my absolute best effort in, and somebody says, well, that's not good enough.
Exactly.
Nothing quite like that, right? But it just makes you...
and it's where transformation happens is at that point.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like you have a choice. You either break or give up.
Yeah.
Or you push through. You could say it's like an 11 out of 10. We discussed this. It was one of the old guys in our industry who said he was driving race cars. Mm-hmm. If you're driving at an 8 out of 10, it's really fun because it's beneath your limit. You enjoy it very much. Yes. When you go to a 9 out of 10, joy basically goes out of the window. You're fully focused on what you're doing. 10 out of 10 is at the limit.
Yeah.
But
all you think you have.
Exactly. But when you go 11 out of 10, you have two different experiences. One, things seem out of control. Mm-hmm. And I don't know who the guy was, but when everything feels under control, you're simply not going fast enough. I like that quote. Yeah. Second of all, it feels like it's not sustainable doing this over a long period of time.
Right.
I think people looking at your work ethic or what we do within our company feel like it's not sustainable over time, which for most people, I guess, it isn't.
Yes.
But it really is what you guys do also.
Yeah.
Sort of like 11 out of 10. I have a great example of that. I'm looking, Mandy brought her horse last year, and it didn't really comply. And is one of your apprentices gets on the horse, and he gets thrown off the horse pretty hard. And I'm like, I'm just curious sitting there like, first of all, this is why I don't ride horses myself. I don't do that.
Yeah.
I think they're dangerous as hell, especially if you don't have any experience in that.
Sure.
And I'm committed to other things in my life. So, it's not for me in this life.
You're the smart one of the two of us.
Yeah. And then he gets thrown off the horse and it's like, ooh, well, that hurts. But I was locked in like, what's going to happen?
Right.
And you mentioned something like, well, that's your fault. You're not going to do that again.
Yeah.
So he learned from a mistake and he gets back on the horse.
Yeah.
Does it again.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. It just creates a lot of skin in the game. It's 2026 when we record this. We live in this day and age where it's like, you should have given him a hug, give him 2 days off or a week off, get a massage. But it's like immediately get back on the horse.
Yeah.
So we could say people at down under horsemanship, you need to have a lot of skin in the game.
Oh, yeah. It's funny you say that. It was I think if it was something that we heard on a weekly basis, Clinton said it was that expression right there. You got to have skin in the game. You know, you got to have, there's a certain amount of all in that you just have to do this. Somebody the other day actually at the clinic asked me, what was it like working for Clinton? I think they thought I was going to give them some, behind the barn scoop or whatever. And I said, when I first started working for Clinton, I would say that Clinton had very high standards, very exacting standards. Clinton doesn't like excuses. He doesn't make them for himself. And he had what a lot of people would consider unrealistic expectations. And they're like, oh, that's what we thought. And I said, no, I'm not finished. I said, and I love that.
Yeah.
I love that they were, I like that they're unrealistic for you. I love that because if it was realistic for you, then we'd be average too. And I just didn't want to do that.
It has been said, a reasonable life is the lowest form of living. When you look at leadership, you end up with one of those two things. You either end up with results or the excuse is why you didn't get the result.
Yes.
So it's one of those two.
Yes.
And most people end up with excuses. They lead a very reasonable life.
Right.
And we got that in common. Unreasonableness is a blessing. It's not a burden.
It really is. Yeah. I that's what I said to the group the other day. I said, you don't know the pride that you walk away when you finally do get your day off and you sit down and you say, we really got some shit done this week. Like that's really serious. I remember one time he was a brother-in-law at the time and he said, oh my God, I'm working like crazy hours. I'm working like 50 hours a week. And I remember I just started laughing. I said, yeah, I remember my first part-time job too. And, and he said, well, that's the same thing. That seems kind of unrealistic or unreasonable. I said, yeah, for you.
Yeah.
For you it is.
Yeah. And within leadership, you need a certain workable level of unreasonableness.
Yeah.
Just do it to higher the bar, set the bar.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Then we go into this is part 5.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, it has been said, I think you said it. Well, you work with horses and you work with people. So first you need to master horses probably. And then you need to master working with people.
Yeah.
Now, what's the difficult part of the job?
That feels like a rhetorical question. So, no doubt about it. Horses are not always easy to train, but they're very easy to understand. I say, I sort of coined a little phrase. I said that, all horses are individuals and they're all the same. Meaning they're individuals in how athletic they are, smart they are, willing they are, right? But they're all the same. And the way a horse is wired and why they do the things that they do really doesn't change. That's the good thing. I tell people at the clinics all the time, I said, listen, if you've got an iPhone 16 and I've got an iPhone 16, we really have the same phone. You've got dirtier photos on yours than I have on mine, but it's the same, So people, on the other hand, are complicated animals, right? And it's the ability to rationalize that gets in people's way because it leads you to excuses. People constantly want to rationalize, well, why the horse is doing this and why the horse is doing that. And they come up with some very elaborate, very creative, albeit very creative excuses. And I'll listen to some of this stuff sometimes and I'm thinking, man, they really put some thought into that. And I'm about to dump a bucket of ice water all over that.
Shatter their excuses.
Oh my God, right? We're like, they call us the dream killer for a reason. And I'm thinking, okay, that's all very impressive explanation. Complete nonsense. It's just not true. That's just not how horses operate. And there's a million examples of the things that people would say.
Probably social media made your life a little bit more difficult because you have these beautiful stories online.
Yes.
Basically nonsense. And it's like, well, I got a great relationship with my horse and that's why it's listening and all that crazy stuff. So how do you guys go about that?
Oh yeah. There really is. There's a lot of, because you just have so much more access to it. And social media is the master at showing you the pretty. And then somebody like us comes along, Clinton made a whole career out of showing problem horses and the reality of, hey, you got to go through some ugly stuff to get to the good stuff. It's just what it is. There's a lot of time at the gym to build that Mr. Olympia physique, if you will. So it is difficult because I think people do show up with a bit more of just an unrealistic view of how it's going to go. I always feel like that's really my job to go above and beyond to explain to them in a way that they can understand that, hey, that's what you showed up with. I'm going to show you over and over again what the reality is. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm not trying to belittle you. But the reality is you've just been misled. You've been convinced that the horse is the mythical creature that somehow if our souls and our hearts align and we look into each other's eyes long enough, we're going to be like this. And the reality is it's just not like that. It's really not like that. When you learn to be an effective leader for your horse, give it some direction. The horses can be incredibly willing partners, but that's really what it comes down to. It's got nothing to do with, it doesn't even have anything to do with like you or dislike you. Horses just don't operate in that world,
That's just typical humans.
Oh,
yeah. Think that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. People very much just complicate things. They overthink it. That's really what they do. Rather than saying, I think sometimes, this is a hard one. Clinton had a video that was very successful, being who he is, saying that horses are a great mirror. That's really what they are. There's nothing more aggravating than you're in the middle of something and we had this a few times as an apprentice. Clinton would walk up, you want me to tell you what's wrong with that horse? Yes, tell me. Go in the bathroom and look in the mirror. It's you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that really gets you, right?
And I do think that's the hard part because for entrepreneurs, leaders in business, it's the same thing. They go off of the team does this, they don't do that. It's never them. It's normally the team.
Yeah.
So what you need to be really good at is looking at yourself. How can I adjust to get a result over there instead of always trying to change the mirror, to use that metaphor?
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. I think you've got to be able to take accountability. You got to be able to take self-ownership of what's going on and say, I always say positively to my clinic participants and students, I said, here's the good news. If it's you can fix it. Sometimes I truly believe people want me to tell them it's unfixable. They want, well, John, you just got the horse that just can't be trained. It's not you, hey man, you're a legend, right? You got it all figured out, but the horse is just untrainable. And the reality is, no, you haven't made the adjustments or you don't quite have the skill set, the feel, the timing, the whatever to get the results that you want. And you need to step back and say, hey, you've either got to develop those skill sets or you're right. You can't train this horse. Nothing wrong with a horse that can't be fixed, but you might not be able to get it done right now. And without the ability, I think, to stand back and say, hey, it's me. Don't go cry yourself to sleep over it. You know what I mean? But it's me. I've got to make changes,
Yeah.
To me, that's always felt kind of obvious. It always felt kind of Like, it doesn't make me feel bad, I suppose. Like, the constructive criticism doesn't hurt my feelings. Like, no, I wanted to get better anyway. So I assumed it must have been something I was doing. And if I need to work at it more, then that's what I'll do. But I grossly misunderestimated how difficult that would be to convey that message in a way that people wouldn't walk away just discouraged and want to quit or pissed off at you that, you don't know what you're talking about. Because, on the other side of that is you can actually make some real results. You can get some real progress.
Yeah, so it has been said that, people either show up with an open mind or a closed mind. I think a problem is also like with an open gap. They are just naive. They're not, they don't think for themselves.
Sure.
But looking at people, what is the ideal person to work with and what would be the worst?
Yeah. If you're the kind of person, if you're highly emotional and you're emotional, unrealistic, and it's never you. I won't name her name, but I can see her face right now. Very extremely difficult type of person to work with. Always the first person to have an excuse about why it's happening. Every time you make a correction, hey, you're what's going on right here is, you're being way too aggressive or you're holding the rein way too long. Well, the reason I'm doing that is and they give you a laundry list. It's like, hey, let's not have a discussion in the moment. Let's just get this done. Well, you need to work it more often. Well, the thing is, Jeff, you don't understand my kids, and I get all that. But you asked me. I'm going to tell you what's the reality. You can figure out how you're going to make it happen, but I'm just telling you, if you want it to change, this is the way to do it. Those are always the most difficult. I want to say you give a glimpse in how you do that, but how to deal with those kind of people. Because if you're listening and you're a business leader, you're like, I got people like that in my team. Yeah. They always have perfect excuses. They call them MOPS, masters of perfect excuses. They always have justifications why they do stuff. They are very feedback sensitive. Yes.
How do you deal with those people?
What I've always tried to explain to those people is, I said, listen, I feel like you just got to confront it head on right there in the moment and say, hey, we're never going to get anywhere. Excuses never got a horse trained. So if you're going to actually get this done, I'm going to need you to accept this feedback. What I'm giving you is feedback. You're taking it as criticism. You're taking it as personal. And I said, listen, at the end of the day, I'll be gone on Monday and I will forget about this conversation entirely. And I will move on to my next clients or whatever the case may be. And at the end of the day, if you really want results, I can help you get that. But you need to start taking this as it's feedback from me to get you better. This isn't personal. Anything I say to you, I said, listen, we don't know each other well enough for this to get personal, okay? I see X, you wanted Y, and I'm going to show you how to get that. And most people will look at you in our circumstances and be like, you're right. It just, in whatever, excuse that they give you, and most people will move on from that. And you can tell it's at least on their mind that they're trying to work on that. Yeah. I think a lot of times it's just a habit that people have got themselves in of all feedback is critical. It's personal. It's because Johan doesn't like me. You know what I mean? And not, no. I want you to get the results that I want, or in their case, that you want. Yeah. You asked me,
So if I boil this down, besides the words that you say to people, because people can draw a lot of inspiration from that, you do that in a very neutral, non-emotional way. Mm-hmm. You really for the other person, and sort of like an invitation.
Yeah. I would totally agree with that.
I think that's great. So then, what are the best people to work with? Did you say, I every now and then encounter people, and you start interacting with them, and you just know this is going to be a hell of a lot of fun. Yeah, we're going to have a great time.
One of the things really is somebody who just doesn't take it so damn serious. You get people. I want people that care enough to take it serious, but not so overly critical of themselves every time they make a mistake. They'll laugh it off it a little bit, like, yeah, I screwed that one up again. And you keep telling me too, and I keep screwing it up. You know what I mean? They're trying, they're going to get it better. They're taking your feedback. They're taking that constructive criticism and moving it somewhere, but they don't get so worked up and bent around the axle about it. And I think too, if they realize, guys, this is horse training. We're not curing cancer in infants here. If nobody ever trains another horse again, we've got cars, okay? There's not a buggy outside the studio, right? We don't need them, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So if we don't ever train another horse again, nothing's going to stop, right? The world has moved on past the horse. So let's realize that, hey, you're doing this for fun. Yes, you're trying to get better. Yes, it can be dangerous, so you need to stay safe. Yes, you have goals and you'd like to accomplish those goals. But don't think it's so dang serious that you can't have any fun doing it. If you can't laugh at yourself a little bit while you're learning, this is going to be really hard.
Yeah.
I would say when I was an apprentice, that almost sort of like that military people, I think, would get this. That sort of like dark humor where you're all kind of ragging on each other a little bit. It just helps you get through that ugly stuff.
Yeah.
People who can be very self-aware are very easy to teach just because they're already becoming more aware of the things that you say. Like I say sometimes I give somebody a tip, sometimes I give somebody a theme. I'm giving you a theme of things that you do. Maybe it's not one incident that you do it or one area that you do it, but in general, you're not assertive enough. You're not, you're too quick, you're too slow, you get too frustrated. It's a theme. People who can take those themes and say, well, what other areas am I doing that?
And start run with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and that would be great for a business leader, because if you don't mentor your people, they become basically the glass ceiling of where you can go with the company.
Sure.
And what I do like is seriousness leads to heaviness. And basically, people need to change certain things from themselves. Yeah. And if things start to become really serious and heavy, people tend to lock up and stay the same.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to make corrections.
Yes.
And when we can keep things at sort of like, it's still a game.
Yeah.
We just got done with the World Cup football, soccer, which Americans don't really like. They're not really into
It's not really
that.
an American sport.
But normally, Team Holland, they normally go to a World Cup, not a lot of expectations, so not a lot of heaviness. They start playing pretty freely. But when things become serious, because we're at the half finals or at the finals, things become heavy, serious, and then you get locked up. You don't get the best football out of people.
Right.
And it goes the same for...
Yeah. No, it's so true. You really don't. It's like, okay, you're putting so much pressure on yourself that your timing's off, your feel is off, what you're looking for is just off now. Because you're too worried about doing it wrong. You're too, am I going to screw him up or whatever? And I always joke with people. I said, listen, he was screwed up before he got here. I don't know what you're worried about now. It's a little late for that if you're worried about that. I said, lighten the hell up. As you change, the horse will change. Horses are very forgiving animals, thank goodness for us. And they're, for the most part, pretty well oriented to put up with your learning a little, right? So, don't take it so dang serious that you feel like, oh my God, I've got to get every last little step right, because that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, good. Couple of more questions before we close off. Do you have an example of a leadership principle from the method that someone could apply tomorrow with their team or their kids, or maybe their own mindset, even if they never touch a horse?
I think something that always stands out to me, and this is a little vague, it's just consistency in what you're going to do. If you're going to push for excellence, whatever you're going to do, if you're going to hold people accountable, be consistent about it. Nothing's more frustrating, at least in my mind, that I've always respected the people. I'm like, God dang, that guy's consistent. I might not like him and he might not like me, but I respect the fact that every day he shows up. And if he demands excellence, it's not through Monday through Friday. Like every time I see that guy, it's excellent in everything that he does. And that's just the way he is. And if he's going to chew this guy out over here and get right in the middle of him and straighten him out about something that he's doing wrong, He's not going to cut you any slack because you're his buddy either. With horses, consistency is everything. If you're not going to be, I feel like to me, consistency is such a serious part of leadership in general.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you're not the same, but at least consistent about your views, your expectations, your whatever, I just don't know how anybody can, develop consistency on their own where, I'm getting the message. We're going to keep moving the message forward. I just don't think you can really accomplish that.
Definitely. And you need stamina to be consistent.
Yes.
Not a lot of people have that stamina.
I agree.
People can push through for just a little bit, but then they stop.
Yeah, it's a sprint, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we have this great distinction, very simple distinction, but for most people, it's you need to stop stopping.
Yeah.
And if you stop stopping, you start to be consistent.
Yeah.
And I think one of the bad things, one of the unworkable things that people do is, Monday to Friday it's Y, right, but in the weekend it's X.
Yeah.
Now I'm telling you to do this, but now, we can lower the bar for just a little bit. And then lowering the bar becomes the new standard.
Right. And I think it's in most people's nature to trend towards mediocrity because it's just comfortable, right?
Yeah.
People I see it all the time with people and their horses. It's hard to be a consistent leader. You've got to work at it. You've got to be aware of it. So that just awareness in general, I say to people with what we do, I said, you might not be taking it serious, but he is. Your horse is taking it serious. So you're training him whether you mean to be or not. I feel like if you were around a group of people, when I'm around a group of the academy students, I'm a big believer in lead by example. So when I'm around them, I'm a big believer in I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I'm not willing to do or that I haven't done a lot more than you. So I feel like, again, if I don't show up like that, if I don't show up consistent every day with that same kind of attitude, that same kind of drive, intensity, push, expectations of them, people just get slack, Thank you, sir. They're gonna drift back towards mediocre, whether they know it or not.
Yeah, but you have been consistent at Down Under horsemanship for the past.
I've been with the company now for a little over 13 years.
Yeah. So that's you could say a long time.
Yeah.
Early in your career still.
Yeah, very much so. And I agree. Stamina, right? You've got to. I feel like you do have to have a certain amount of passion for what you do. Something's got to drive you. I go back and forth on this when you hear people say, you follow your passion. Well, sometimes your passion doesn't make a living. There's plenty of things that people are passionate about that they'll never be able to feed their family doing. But I think in whatever you're doing, if you don't have any kind of passion, when it gets difficult, you just won't keep going.
You could say so. I think in the American dictionary, passion would be described as a uncontrollable feeling. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty hard being consistent from something that's pretty much uncontrollable.
Yeah.
So then we could go back to commitment. Mm-hmm. And I think, what people like is starting new things.
Yes.
Because you have that startup energy.
Absolutely.
And you have to be, committed to just push through. So I sometimes joke, people ask me, what's your passion? Well, it would maybe, drink whiskey, smoke a cigar around a campfire. But my real commitment is my job.
Yes.
And I do think if you're really willing to commit, you're willing to give up certain stuff, and you create substance and depth in whatever you do, that creates a hell of a lot more fulfillment than passion will ever do.
No, I couldn't agree with that more. There's I think like you just said, the certain amount of just commitment, when you have a real, because you see this in people all the time when you ask them like, hey, are you truly passionate about being a plumber? They'd say, no, not really. I have a commitment to excellence in what I do. I'm committed to providing the best service that I do. I always said, at least for myself, I felt a lot of fulfillment in the push, a lot of fulfillment in, I was uncomfortable. That made me uncomfortable, and I did it anyway. I did what I said I was going to do, And maybe I always looked at that a little like passion, but it's probably not. It's probably what you say. It's more of a commitment to yourself that, no, I want to be somebody who does what they say they're going to do. And if I say that I'm committed to being the best, that means a commitment to staying uncomfortable to a certain extent and until you get to a new level and then you go to another one. Now, it's a never ending game, right?
Well, that is absolutely true, because when you start to be honoring your word, say what you're going to do and do it, it's just a mountain without a top. Now, if you don't have a lot going in your life, it's pretty easy. But if you have a lot of commitments, well, it really is a mountain without a top.
Yeah.
Then you look at it, well, your life and your relationship works to the degree you keep your agreements.
Right.
So that's a big thing. I like that. Okay. Last couple of takeaways. So looking at the young horsemen and horsewomen, you brought Lindsay this year.
Yeah.
She is, how old is she?
23.
23. Really committed.
Yeah.
Committed to a life that most people just wouldn't follow through or push through. So I think you have this expression in America, people are created equal under the law. Well, they really don't, because you know what's different with people? Their level of commitment.
Yes.
And then they say, well, I'm not like 100% committed, but like 80%. No. Everybody is 100% committed, but some people to comfort, some people to their greatness, their bigness.
Yeah.
So I would say people are not equal because people's levels of commitment aren't equal.
Yeah, couldn't agree with that more. That's so true. We find when we're looking for the next Lindsay or somebody like that. Hey, Clinton used to have a saying when we do our orientation. I went through multiple of these with other classes of students and that. He would say to people, he said, everybody tells me I love horses and I love this and I'm gonna be the best student you've ever seen. I'm gonna be the greatest clinician you've ever met. And Clinton, I freaking love this. He used to say, we'll see. We'll see. Because when it's not fun, it's really hot, it's really cold, and you're really tired, and you're really frustrated, and it's not going the way you imagined that it would go, that commitment is going to get tested. And you're going to figure out really quickly, you know what? The love that I had for this, I don't know if that's going to keep me going. Right?
Yeah.
I really do think it does come down to, I know a guy in particular who came through. He's not a clinician with us anymore, but during his apprenticeship, he's a remarkable person in that I know it wasn't his life's goal to do that, but he just wasn't a quitter. He had a serious amount of commitment. I think some of it was chip on his shoulder, and I like that too. And some of it was, no, I'm in. I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna pour whatever kind of energy that it takes to be what I need to be to succeed here. And I'm committed. So whether or not this was the thing that I dreamt about for a decade before I got here, irrelevant. I said I would, so I will. And I got a lot of respect for those kind of people.
It's just easy to work with.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because they follow through.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have feelers and you have doers.
Yeah.
It's the doers that's easy. Okay, so Jeff, looking at the young horsemanship coming through the academy, what one piece of advice would you give someone who wants to pursue real mastery at anything?
Again, back to what we talked about, really commitment. You've really got to make the choice. Are you all in no matter what? Like, I can speak for myself. I never had any confidence in my talent. I didn't even have any confidence in my abilities when I started doing what I'm doing. What I had supreme confidence in is I'm not going to quit. I'll do whatever it takes. I often joke around, but I'm not really joking. Like, I wouldn't have left at gunpoint. Like, you're going to have to physically drag me out of here, or I'm leaving with the knowledge. I'm going to leave with what I want, and I don't give a damn what it takes to get that done. I'll do it. You can insult me. You can yell and scream at me. That's right. I got broad shoulders. I can deal with that. That's fine. One way or another, I'm going to get it. Most people are just not that committed. I want it until it's hard or it's uncomfortable or the first time, well, I really want this weekend off because there's this thing I want to go. I want to go watch the World Cup. It's the only time they're going to be in wherever, in my hometown and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, hey, you've got an event this weekend. That's just not going to happen. You know what I mean? You don't have the time. And then you see that commitment down a little bit. So if you want to come and do something like that or do anything at a high level, you'd better seriously ask yourself, are you all in? I'm a believer in, if you're not all in, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
So from one committed guy to another, is there any other way to get something significantly done?
Not that I know of.
Absolutely.
Not that I know of.
Any other way would always lead to something mediocre.
Yes. I think what would happen is one of my favorite expressions that comes from one of Clinton's mentors, Ian Francis. Ian had an expression. He said, if you want something bad enough, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. If you don't have that high level of commitment, you will make excuses for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think all of us are guilty at times of, I'm letting myself off the hook right now. Like,
yeah,
I'm getting slack here. And you got to look yourself in the mirror. I think this is something that a lot of people can't do for you. I think you got to tell yourself. And I think at a certain level, even guys that you respect, it's got to come from you, not them, right? They could tell you and it would have an impact. Oh man, he's noticing. He's noticing that I'm not really my very best. But it really comes when you look in the mirror and you're like, that wasn't your best effort. You can do a lot better than that. Stop making excuses and get the job done.
Yeah. Well, people can tell you whatever Clinton could have told, but you need to create it for yourself.
Yeah.
Actually go through the fire, experience that. I like that. So, okay, anything that we didn't go over that would be important, like, for our listeners?
No, I think we covered a lot of things. I think we covered a lot of things for our potential students in the future and just people, just leadership in general. It's interesting to me, obviously, a lot of these principles, I never really thought of human leadership principles. I've dedicated my life to the horse industry, so I'd thought about horses for a long time. It's funny that we had this conversation. I had a group of there with the Toronto Maple Leafs, the hockey team.
Oh yeah,
and they wanted me to come and speak to prospect players, some that had been drafted and some that hadn't. And my first thought was, what the hell am I going to talk to a bunch of hockey players about? I don't even know the rules of the game. And he's like, like about leadership and stuff. I'm like, there's a million other way more qualified guys. And he's like, no, what you do, like horsemanship and that, there's a lot of parallels. And it really made me think about that. I did that last year, in fact. And I'm not lying. I showed up thinking to that event, this is going to be like doing comedy at a funeral. I'm going to eat my freaking hat in here. There's no way. And I was amazed how much that really did transfer over. So no, it was interesting. Even when you suggested that we have this discussion, my first thought again was, does what I do really translate that much to what you do? But it is interesting. There's a lot of parallels.
Yeah,
really is.
Definitely. So, okay, now a lot of people listening to this thinking, okay, Jeff Davis, where can I find the guy? Where can I learn more about him?
So the best place to find out about me is really downunderhorsemanship.com. I'm all over Clinton's social media as well, Facebook, Instagram.
We heard before the session, you have weak online social media presence.
Horrible.
Same goes for me.
I'm telling you, if you looked at my personal Facebook, you would have thought that Jeff Davis must have died back in like 2010. You know what I mean? Because that guy doesn't seem to exist. I'm all over Clinton stuff. Yeah. But no, my personal, I'm horrible at it. I really am.
Good. Well, thank you for this conversation.
Hey.
Maybe we do this in like 12 months when you get back to Holland.
Hey.
Let's agree on that one.
Hey, I'd love to.
Good.
Let's plan on it.
Thank you very much. It's
Thank
the
you
first
for
one,
having me.
First Thing for Everything, English podcast. And I'm glad it was you, Jeff. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.